Hey there, Kelly O'Connell, Knockout Podcasts, author and attorney. Was just checking out the attempt to recall Gavin Newsom, which failed, and I thought I would just do a little podcast on that, and hope you're well. Got some sad news, but some happy news too. So the sad news is you didn't get rid of Gavin Newsom. The good news is you still have him around to kick, and he's certainly not done failing, as we all know. So the upshot is we have to reorganize, and the people that are real conservatives have got to get in the fight and stop whining, stop complaining, stop pretending that the world is over. Now, I will admit that if these guys keep going, the world is going to be going back to the Stone Age, and we have to fight our heads off. By the way, 20 inches from this storm that hit Texas and Louisiana. So there's a town, I think Seabrook, down in Texas, which was it's on the Gulf Coast, but totally inundated with water. So a lot of these sea towns have a lot of drama when it comes to weather. So anyway, Gavin Newsom looked like he might be recalled, and then Larry Elder ran. He didn't win, but Larry Elder looks like he'll probably get, I don't know, it's between 1 and 2 million votes. So I think he would be good to run for Senate next time. I mean, why not? He's a good candidate. Now, Larry Elder the welder, he did do a pretty good job. He's never run for office before, but we've got this news that just came out that General Milley, Mark Milley, the guy that's head of all the military, he had convinced himself that Trump was about to start a nuclear war. And by the way, Trump didn't like wars, so where this idea came from, I really don't know. But he was in communication with China to let them know if we were going to launch or try to launch nuclear weapons towards them. All of these people that are opposed to Trump, why is it they all seem like the same person? I mean, they're totally different people, right? Totally different, and they're supposedly world champions. They're great at something. They ran for office, or they were in the military, or wherever they got their reputation from, and they all fall for the same trick, that they were convinced that Trump was Dr. Strangelove, he was the Antichrist, he was Hitler come back, even though he didn't act like it. But he might have fooled people into thinking that he was going to do something when he didn't. But you've got this guy that's the head of the military, and he's going around lecturing on being woke, and now it turns out that he doesn't even support democracy. Democratic republicanism is based on a civilian leadership of the nation. It's not supposed to be the military running the nation, right? So, is anything going to happen to him? No. Biden is not going to remove him. All the people on the left are defending him, saying he was right to tell all of the people beneath him that he was the one who had the nuclear codes, not Trump, even though that was not constitutional. Civilians run the government. And so what you've got here is that Trump smoked these people out. They got so frustrated, and every single one of these people thought he was smarter than Trump. So Mark Milley needs to be removed. Will he be removed? Of course not, because nobody gets punished anymore. If you're going after Trump or somebody like that, there's not going to be punishment. So that just sets us up for an attempt at a permanent coup whenever there's a Republican in office. But anyway, My little essay here for Canada Free Press. Liberals have no standards. Newsom recall fails as U.S. Dems save Ailing, California governor. And then the subheading, Salvaging Joe Biden's deranged presidency now must absorb General Milley's treason. And was it treason? I mean, of course it was. You're not allowed to do that. Communicate with another country and say, if the leader of this country decides to do something, I'll call you first. When that country is your enemy, which China is certainly our enemy, they steal all our intellectual property, and now they've launched a gigantic military to come and try to knock us around. And now Joe Biden has done them a huge favor by walking away from one of the world's largest Air Force bases, Bagram Air Force Base. You see how all this plays out, and apparently Putin told Biden, you better not have any spies over in East Asia. So now we don't have any spies, and we don't know what's going on the ground, which is why when we went to blow up Taliban X, or whatever the heck it's called, what is the name of that? Al-Qaeda X, or whatever it was called, K. We ended up blowing up one of our own workers who was delivering water to people, and they thought that when he was loading the bottles of water into the back of his station wagon that it was munitions. And so they lied to us and told us when we hit this vehicle there was a secondary explosion that was massive. I mean, that's not going to happen if you hit water, right? And about 7 or 9 kids were killed. And this is this idiot Biden who just does whatever he wants, and then everybody else has to scramble around. So Anthony Blinken was on TV today. Now look, he's called down to the Congress. He's called down to get interviewed by the Senate, and instead of showing up in person, he does a video from a few blocks away, right? I mean, this guy can do whatever he wants. He's in leadership. He's a liberal. And Austin, who's the head of the Department of Defense, didn't even show up. He was asked to show up. Why didn't he show up? Because he doesn't have any answers. So this kind of brought to mind this very serious issue, which is Democrats and liberals, there's no standard. There's no standard because no matter how they fail, they always protect them because it's about aggregating power. It's not about getting the best people in office. Obviously, they wouldn't have run Joe Biden, who's failed. So anyway, tonight Gavin Newsom, he survived a near-death experience despite his California leadership reeling from one Gilligan's Island-level disaster to the next. He's a true child of woke, Newsom is, fully embracing shutdowns. But then he was suddenly exposed as a maskless hypocrite at a gourmet diner, the French, whatever the hell that place was called, the French. Should have been called the French Revolution because everybody was pretty mad at him after this. And that's when the recall really went after, because he shut down all these businesses unscientifically. They didn't really know what was going on with the virus in terms of business, but they shut them down anyway. Put people in masks. Newsom aped unscientific trends by mindlessly closing many small businesses, and many of those failed. And a lot of them were run by blacks and Hispanics and women and stuff. So, I mean, of course, the liberals care about women and blacks and Hispanics. Now, Newsom toiled to shut down. Here's some of his sins, some of the reasons people were mad at him. Newsom decided there's not going to be any more drilling of oil in California for environmental reasons, right? But California's not going to get rid of cars, so they're going to be using somebody else's oil, which means that other people are going to be making money off the oil. So Newsom is just a moronic and imbecilic follower. They curtailed police. They cut back police. We see how that's worked across the United States. Murders were up over 500% in Portland where they did that. They shuttered prisons because they want to release a lot of people from prison. And they're keeping people out on bond who are very violent, and so more people are getting hurt and killed. They ignored big city crises, like all of the homeless people, right? All of these homeless that are just just thriving across California, and they've got every right, of course. I mean, doesn't the Constitution say people have a right to be homeless and live wherever they want, and we have to support them? He mishandled the water crisis as fires even now today are raging, the biggest fires in state history, and it was due to land mismanagement. So what does he do with his time? Doesn't do anything about the water crisis or the overgrown forests. Now, Gavin's kids were privately tutored, but California youngsters were all sent home, even though there was no scientific evidence that schools would spread COVID. It's just absurd. Now, crime is surging as prisoners receive billions in COVID payments. You probably heard about that, right? All these people in prison getting these payments because the government didn't know what they were doing. And California thugs regularly steal in plain sight as laws favor thieves over business owners. And look that up in YouTube. I guarantee you will be astounded. Now, given high taxes, excessive regulations, and absurd housing prices, residents are fleeing the Golden State like rodents, disembarking the Spanish Armada. Now, the Spanish Armada is when the Spanish were going to come and wipe out Britain for being opposed to their form of religion, and didn't work out that way, and the Spanish Armada itself was wiped out over a series of years. And it was considered to be a miracle, actually, one storm after another, and they ran aground in one place. They were sunk by storms in another. I mean, it was just amazing how that happened. That deserves its own podcast. Now, overall, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, is a horrible leader, and yet national Democrats rush to his aid like a baby wailing on the railroad tracks. Why? Well, because liberals never, ever, ever take custody of bad governance or disasters. It's never a question of competency or leadership or failure. Why? Because the purpose of leadership to Democrats is only power, can only be power. And the reason for that is their worldview is based on leftism, socialism, Marxism, progressivism, and in those ways of seeing things, the only thing that exists is power. That's why Nancy Pelosi makes this huge deal over abortion rights and feminism, and then lets all these women, feminists, new feminists in Afghanistan get left behind, so they're beaten and raped and killed. Because the Taliban doesn't like feminism. Islam doesn't like feminism. So, losing our two largest states' Democratic governors could not be allowed. We already lost Cuomo for being a pervert, but also he killed 20,000 elderly, which wasn't even discussed. So vast national funds poured into California as Dem celebrities. Did you know a lot of these celebrities in Hollywood, they don't even have a high school degree, but most of them, the vast majority of them, don't have any college degree, but they'll get up and lecture you on arcane subjects, on technical or environmental subjects all day long. Like, what's this idiot female's name? Brie? Is it Brie Larson? Gets up and gives speeches on global warming because she's got a microphone, because she's a talented actress. Well, does any of this even matter? Maybe it doesn't. Well, we lost a chance in California, but at least we gave it a try. Now they want to get rid of impeachment or removal in California. Of course they do. Why? Because they don't want there to be any connection between campaign promises and delivery. They don't want there to be any connection between competence. And what do you have to do to be competent as a leader? What should you be doing? What's the most important things to most people? Number one, safety. Number two, an economy that allows them to find work, or if that job ends or they don't like that job, they can go find another job. Education, so their kids go to school and learn about the past and the future, and learn logic and math and a foreign language if they need to. All of that stuff is not really happening in California, is it? Because they are advocates. A person who's a leftist is an advocate. They're not really interested in leadership. Did you notice how disinterested Obama acted a lot, like he was too important to be president? The purpose of an advocate is to advance their agenda, and the agenda of these people is socialism, and the purpose of socialism is world communism, if you want to boil it down. Not to bore you, but America is now introduced to the absurd idea that as long as a leader is a Democrat, they may do anything they like. But why? Because Democrats are, quote, the good guys, right? Isn't that what we're always told? Trump's a bad guy so that the head of the army can go behind his back and make a deal with China? That's good, isn't it? And how many times was Trump backstabbed? Now, for instance, Joe Zombie Biden in all his demented glory decided to leave Afghanistan without bringing back his citizens first. Why? Because he could. I mean, that's enough, isn't it? New York Governor Cuomo turned his office into a harem when not murdering 20,000 elderly in retirement homes, and he was removed, but only because he asked his own attorney general to open an investigation. And he was just treading water. He was delaying the obvious. And now the head of the military, General Milley, is exposed as undermining Trump by gathering unconstitutional powers while secretly communicating with China and making deals. Who the hell is this guy? He's not elected. He has no right to contact China. Yet this won't be prosecuted because the Department of Justice has already refused to go after the FBI for the hoax Trump-Russia attempted coup. And there's so many more examples of this kind of crap. Do you see a pattern? Now, go back to the roots. Go back to our Constitution, the most important political document in democratic history. America is a civilian democratic republic designed for transparent citizen leadership. We are designed to be led by our own people, not by the military, not by the rich families, and not by an established class of politicians that goes from, one family member to another like the Bushes. But this idea is now under furious attack by an unbelievably far-flung assault led by American leftist radicals. Can you imagine how many different ways these people have tried to take over? And what they're trying to do is delegitimize all of our institutions so that we only put faith directly into the federal government. And they're dumbing down the kids so they can't think on their own. This coming generation has been called a zombie generation. And they don't have any beliefs. They don't stand for anything. All they care about is social media and playing games. They expect to be paid without doing work. They don't like to work. How can they be successful? Now, this ongoing planned coup was organized for decades. And if you want to learn about it, how this type of thing happens, because all of this stuff is laid down in the history of Marxism. It's a Fabian society. It's slow socialism. It's a slow takeover. And everybody's so distracted by trying to run businesses or get their kid to school or plan the rest of their life. They don't notice as all of the freedoms are taken away. And then Biden shows up and he wants to take away our freedom, whether we're going to get a injection, which he says he's run out of patience. And this is immediately after totally screwing up Afghanistan and letting hundreds of thousands of COVID-infected people in on the border, and his own secretary, his own, Mike, his person at the microphone, Psaki, admits that, you have to get a virus vaccine. Your employees do, but no, immigrants don't have to. They're special. But we're going to pay for everything for them. So Trump temporarily stopped the music on this crew, but consider the astounding failures of leftism, of American Democrats, and we recognize the inevitable pairing, proving the genius of our founders. So the founders put together tyranny and failure. Specifically, all Marxist leadership has been a historical failure going back to Lenin and Stalin. So socialists always choose bad leaders. And the reason they choose bad leaders, my friends, if you want to know why, it's not luck. It is because the people they put into leadership are party people. They put party first. And all they know about is the party. And so they can't come in and run a business or run a bureaucracy because they don't have any training in that. All they have training in is following the rules, following the leaders, follow the leader. So in a regular or in an American style democracy, Republican style democracy, the leadership goes up through the ranks. It's like the baseball system. Single A, double A, triple A, then you get to the majors after you've learned your craft. And these people coming up in the ranks through state office and then into federal office, they learn the craft of how to lead, how to make good decisions. And we're losing that. And we have these old fossils. Nancy Pelosi, 80 years old. I've never seen an old person like her go around and insult people and talk down to them like she's some sort of a genius. And all she does is destroy things. And it's become the same with Biden. So, all socialism is a failure because it's only interested in power. You don't have to, in a socialism, you don't have to stay in power by being successful, by having your policies be good policies, right? So, Biden and company's Marxist mysticism leads this ship of fools to consider any change done for the purpose of world socialism will turn out for the good. And this is an idea I've been working on. I did some research on it, wasn't able to find too much on it. I don't claim that it's an original idea, but I found a few articles I couldn't really get to them that mentioned it. What I'm talking about with Marxist mysticism, Marxism has this theory that if you have the right circumstances, then it's inevitably going to turn into a socialism, communism, a Marxist communism. And this occurs because the people are so frustrated living as slaves in capitalism that they go to throw off their chains and they rise up and they have a revolution. But that's never happened in America because we're so good at capitalism that everybody benefits from it. So these people that are into leftism, the Pelosi's, the Schumers, the AOCs, the Bidens, all of these people, Kamala Harris, believe that if they just do the right things, the right policies, success will be inevitable. But the kind of things that they want to do, they want to shut down the oil industry. They leave our borders open, completely open for millions of people to stream in here. They want to shrink the economy. They want a deficit spend. All these things they believe are going to cause, are you ready for this, a collapse of the American economy and the political system so that we have to go into socialism. It's going to be our only life raft. They think it's just going to happen, but that isn't what is just inevitable to happen. It is, there's going to be a lot of death. So try telling how the 5 million Russian kulak farmers how great this system is, who were starved to death by the state when Lenin hated their guts and Stalin hated their guts because they didn't need the government because they were subsistence farmers. So the government would show up and take all their grain that they raised and then tell them that you'll get back what you need. And of course they didn't, and they all started starving. And then the soldiers would be sent out to search for more grain that they had hidden. And if they found any grain in their stool, in their poop, they'd kill them. That's what socialism leads to every time. So American conservatives must push back, organize, and take on every election like it's our last, because it might be our last. Let's destroy socialism at the ballot box and leave a better USA for our descendants so that liberty might still possibly survive to the next millennium. All right, and I have for you what you really came here for, which is weird news. All right, so here is your first weird news story. Bizarre pig-faced shark found dead in Mediterranean Sea. You'd have to look at it. It does have a pig nose, but it's kind of wide. To say how long it is, it looks like it might be a couple of feet long. But it's not called a pig-faced shark, because it's of its nose, or that might be part of it, but it also, when it's pulled out of the water, it's known to grunt like a hog. And it's the angular rough shark Oxynotos centrina, better known in some harbors as the pigfish. Naval officers in Elba, Italian island, created an online stir when they pulled one of these from the water. And very interesting. I've never seen a fish like it. The shark's flat head, wide set eyes, and blunt pinkish snout were not enough to, if they weren't enough to earn the pigfish nickname. It's the grunting. So check it out. Check it out online. And a truly horrific crime. A man was sentenced to 10 years in prison after prosecutors say he stabbed a woman with a syringe filled with semen at a Maryland grocery store. That is so bizarre. Now, his name is even bizarre. Maybe it had something to do with his crime. Thomas Steeman. Maybe he was Steeman because his name sounded like semen. But he was sentenced in Anne Arundel County Circuit Court Tuesday in Maryland. And it was charges of first and second degree assault in February 2020 at the supermarket at Churchton, Maryland. And he entered an Alford plea, which means that he doesn't admit to doing the crime, even though he pleads guilty. Which I don't understand how he arranged that, because that's the kind of thing you want him to admit. But the defendant's actions were truly horrific. He intentionally went out into our community with the goal of assaulting an unsuspecting woman. So obviously she could have gotten AIDS or some other STD, or even worse. And so he's in the supermarket and was following the woman around in the store's cart area, taking something out of his pocket before bumping into her. The woman backs out of the store and he continues to follow her. And the woman said to the police that she asked him if she had been burned with a cigarette, and the suspect replied, "Yeah, it felt like a bee sting, didn't it?" And then she discovered a small red puncture wound. It started to swell the next day. She went and got medical treatment. And so then the police looked at the video and asked for help to find him, and he was located, and his DNA was found in there. And he lunged at two different women, including a 17-year-old girl. So, all right. Now, here is a very, very interesting story. There is a startup called Colossal, and it wants to resurrect the woolly mammoth by 2027, and that's in 6 years, obviously. They've got $15 million to restore the woolly mammoth to the Arctic, and thinks it can birth calves in 4 to 6 years. So they want to use CRISPR, a revolutionary gene editing technology, and the plan isn't to truly recreate woolly mammoths exactly, but to rather bring their cold adapted genetic traits like small ears and more body fat to their elephant cousins, creating a hybrid, in other words. And that's what they always do in these cases, because they have no idea how to completely restart an animal from just a cell that's, tens of thousands of years old. So the owner says our true North Star is successful restoration of the woolly mammoth, but also its successful rewilding into interbreeding herds in the Arctic. We're now focusing on having calves in 4 to 6 years. And anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. They want to grow 10 woolly mammoths with surrogate elephant mothers. And they don't want to do Jurassic Park style tourism. But what they want to do is is just get it back out there, increase biodiversity. And so they're not going to have it in a park, according to this. Now, the question has come up, is de-extinction a good idea? Because there have been a lot of animals that have been lost. But, I mean, if somebody could return a woolly mammoth, couldn't they return a woolly rhinoceros? And there's something else that I found, which was they had discovered a lot of places around the world, they've got this flying dinosaur that looks exactly like a dragon, the old idea of a dragon. And wouldn't that be just a gigantic, wouldn't that cause just an incredible interest and get a lot of money for these people? So anyway, you never know what's around the corner. But could you imagine eating a steak from a woolly mammoth? Just a gigantic steak. Anyway, Kelly O'Connell, thanks for tuning in. Hope you're well and have a great day. And I'll talk to you soon. Don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up on Knockout Podcast. Ciao.